Hey, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about fundamentalism. We're going to put the fun in talking about it's going to be fundamental. Okay. I was thinking about it more because I was watching the Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey doc on Netflix about the fundamentalist Mormon church in Utah or whatever. And I've been listening to a lot of podcasts about cults. I listened to the one called Indoctrination, which I like because she always interviews somebody who was in a cult, and I always think that's the most interesting thing. Like, you're in a cult and then you come out and your thoughts about, like, why you were there, like what they did. I really like listening to people's stories about cults. It's kind of sad that every week she has a new person from a cult on her show. Like, so many people who are in cults, and she's like a small podcast too. So, but it's not hard to find these people. There's so many people who have been in cults, and it's not great. So, okay, but fundamentalism is... Okay, fundamentalism. I didn't look up what it means, but let's... to define it, I think it was... and they kind of mentioned it in the documentary. Like, it came out of... it was a reaction to, like, liberal Christianity, where Christianity was kind of changing to fit progressive culture. Like, black people are okay now, and Christianity's like, yeah, because maybe Christianity could be associated in the past with, like, slavery or something. I don't know. That's a sidetrack. That's, like, not exactly true, but I think the idea is, like, fundamentalism in the early 1900s, 1800s was a reaction to progressive Christianity coming up in the same time. And the name comes from the idea that the fundamentals of Christianity are, like, unimpeachable, inerrant. Like, we shouldn't be changing anything. The fundamentals have to stay the same. You liberal Christians are changing all this stuff. Like, we need to stop doing that. So the fundamentals of Christianity would be like the inerrancy of the Bible. Like, it's all perfect. I probably should just Google fundamentalism to get a better definition of it, but fundamentalism is bad. And you can look at, like, fundamental Islam in Saudi Arabia or something and see fundamental Islam and fundamental Christianity, if they're pushed to, like, their limits, they're the same thing. They're equally as bad. It's like you're killing gay people for being gay. Like, that's where it leads. Which is, like, what they do in super, like, ISIS or whatever. And then you see the freaking guy who actually said that a couple weeks ago in Texas. He was like, the Bible says being gay is bad, so we should shoot all the gay people. Oh, my Jesus Christ. What a ridiculously horrible, insane, mentally... That guy is mentally disturbed. So, fundamentalism, though. Okay, so the fundamental version of Christianity is that here... Okay, this is... The fundamentals are the most important thing. Conformity and following rules. So that's, like, something you could see in the fundamental Mormon church. The most important thing is to follow the rules and to conform to what the prophet is telling you is the right thing to do. We all have to do the same thing because we all know what's right, because the prophet is telling us, and the prophet is from God. First of all, if anybody's calling themselves a prophet, they're not a prophet, so don't listen to them. They're crazy. But my version of Christianity is that, what did I write down? I want to get this right. Individuality and love are more important than following rules and conformity. That's the main tenet of that I need to state that, because sometimes it's frustrating, because like you go to church and like you hear people talking like, oh, it's bad to be gay, it's good to be gay, blah blah blah. Okay, what's a good way to simplify it for me so I can understand what I believe? I could still be a Christian, but my version of Christianity values, this is a good way to simplify it and to sum it all up, values individuality and love over everything. The person is the most important thing. Following the rules is not important, almost at all. And conforming and doing what everybody else is doing is not important. I don't know. It feels like that's what they teach you when you're like 4 years old, and then when you get older, and then you're like, well, the Bible says this, and people are like, I don't. We get so confused. I was confused. I'm very confused. I'm still confused. I don't know what I'm doing. So, it's simple. I mean, the gay thing is always the easiest thing to apply this to, and the best example, because it's like, okay, do we want to follow the rule of the one verse or the two verses in the New Testament that say men having sex with men is an abomination or whatever? Or do we want to trust that love is okay and good above rules? If you feel like the rule is wrong in a specific situation, I've always said, like, if I was gay, it would be a sin because I'm not gay. So I wouldn't be loving that person. I'm not capable of loving a man, probably. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But, like, it doesn't apply to me that way. Does that make sense? What I'm saying? Yeah. Does that make sense? And I feel like, yeah, I mean, I mentioned, like, well, when I was a kid, we kind of learned that. I feel like my parents really did. Oh, here's another example. In the Old Testament, and like 100 years ago, people used to justify hitting their kids because of, there's a couple proverbs that are like, a wise man doesn't spare the rod to teach his child. Very clear what you should be doing. If your kid does something wrong, hit him with a stick. That's what it says in the Bible. My parents didn't do that. Why? Because they loved me. That's the truth. And they knew if they hit me, it wasn't out of love, so they didn't do it. Follow that thing that's like love. Some people, they're like, I'm hitting you, but like I don't want to. It just says it in the Bible, so I need to do it. I'm hating gay people because Jesus says it in the Bible. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's when you get off track, I think. What do you feel? I don't know. Do you really feel like it's bad, or do you just feel that way because you've been taught like that's what it says in the Bible? Or do you really think, like when you use your brain, that two people loving each other is bad? That hitting your kid is helping them? It's hard. Like, it's hard to judge people 100 years ago because they didn't really know any better. Like, how else are you supposed to know? Like, your kid is behaving badly and you hit them and they stop behaving badly. You're like, well, okay, it works, but it's not good for them, and we know that now. So, and I'm sure the first couple times you hit your kid and they start crying, you're like, ugh, I should not be doing this. This does not feel good. If I really loved my kid, I wouldn't be smacking them with a stick right now. Ooh, the thunder's coming. The thunder's coming. The tornado. I kind of hoped I would do a little bit better job explaining this, but I hope I got something good out of that. I have more notes about the FLDS Mormon people, but I really feel like that's true. Like, my parents, they never explicitly said that to me, like, love is more important than the rules, but they did treat me that way because they didn't hit me when I was a kid. They didn't do those specific things that are in the Bible that if they were following it by the book, they would have done. They didn't do those things because they followed love more often. I mean, I'm sure there's sometimes when they didn't. My dad, I feel like, is very moral. He does have a good... my mom, too, obviously. I feel like my dad really values, like, morality. I remember when I was and I know I've probably mentioned this before, and this is where I get it, because I'm kind of similar. I know this is where I get it from. My dad taught me this. And I think actually I mentioned this last Father's Day, and it's almost Father's Day again, so it's funny. When I was a kid, I have a bunch of examples like this, but this is the one that always comes to my head. When I was in like first grade, we had a soccer team that every year the dads would just be like, there would be a bunch of soccer teams, and the dads would all be like, oh, I want to get my kid on the team with his friends and like all the good soccer players. So they would just call like whoever was in charge and just like kind of annoy them until they put their kid on the right team. And everybody would just do that, and it was just kind of like a known thing that everybody did. But I remember my dad being like, that's not right to do that. I'm not gonna... He was very, like, adamant, but like in a good way, like a righteous way, kind of. Like, he really believed that morally was wrong to do, to call and be like, put my kid on the good team. And I remember being on a team with like people they were from like a different town and they were not good, but it was like, my dad really didn't want, and I do respect that. I like that, like that he was that way. I don't know, like, I don't know, that's maybe kind of a bad example, but I always like that one. Ooh, I didn't write the time down. Okay, that's good. We're done. Maybe tomorrow I'll talk a little bit about the FLDS That documentary is kind of interesting. But cool. How you doing? Did you watch the Jerome Powell press conference about the interest rates? What are the interest rates are like 1.75 now, I think. The good old Fed fund rate. And next month he says he's going to do another. They're going to keep raising the rate until inflation goes down. So I think they're targeting 3%. So as long as they keep raising interest rates, the stock market is not going to go up. I don't see that happening. But whatever. We'll talk about that tomorrow maybe. See ya.